In a study run out of Wharton, researchers put an actor in a room full of strangers and gave him one instruction: act irritated. Say nothing about it, just carry the mood. Within minutes, the people in that room were measurably more irritated too. Their own ratings shifted, their cooperation dropped, and not one of them could have told you why. Nobody argued with them, nobody insulted them. There was no fight, no bad news, no reason on paper for any of it. The mood just moved, person to person, like something airborne, until the whole room was breathing it. Psychologists have a name for this: emotional contagion. And the unsettling part isn't that it happens. It's how invisible it is while it's happening to you. You don't feel yourself catching someone's mood. You just look up an hour later and notice you feel worse, and you assume it was you. Your bad day, your fault, your problem to fix. It usually wasn't. Here's what I want you to do for the next 20 minutes. Picture the specific person who does this to you. Not a type, a face, the one whose name shows up on your phone and something in your chest tightens before you've even decided how you feel about it. You already know who I mean. You thought of them before I finished the sentence. By the end of this, you're going to understand exactly what your body already knows about that person and why it's been trying to tell you for a very long time. Because here's the thing. 20 centuries before anyone ran that experiment, a Stoic teacher named Epictetus described the same mechanism. He didn't have a lab. He had 2 pieces of coal. We'll get to the coal. But first, there's an uncomfortable question sitting underneath all of this. If you can catch someone's mood without ever noticing it happen, what else are you catching from the people you spend your time with? There's a version of this you've already felt 100 times. You've just never given it a name. It's the tightness that shows up before someone finishes their sentence. The way your shoulders climb toward your ears when a certain name lights up your screen before you've even opened the message. The breath you let out, the one you didn't plan, didn't decide on, the second they finally leave the room. Your body was holding something the entire time they were there. You only notice when it lets go. You've probably called that anxiety, or being sensitive, or reading too much into things. It's none of those. It's data. It's just arriving before the part of you that explains things has had a chance to catch up. There's a study that makes this hard to dismiss. Researchers went onto a real trading floor in London. High stakes, real money, careers made and ended in an afternoon, and they tested something strange. They measured how well each trader could feel their own heartbeat. No fingers on the wrist, no watching a monitor, just sitting still and sensing from the inside what their own body was doing. The traders who were best at this had a name for what it gave them: gut feeling. And it turned out that gut feeling was worth money. The traders with the sharpest read on their own bodies didn't just perform better, they lasted longer. They survived on that floor while others washed out because their bodies were registering risk a beat before their conscious minds could put it into words. Sit with what that means for a second. The thing you dismiss as being dramatic, the stomach that drops, the chest that tightens, is the exact same instrument that kept elite traders solvent. You're not overthinking the people who drain you. If anything, you're underestimating your own gut. I used to call it being dramatic, honestly. That flinch before a phone call, the low dread I couldn't justify. I told myself I was making things up. Turns out my stomach had better data than my journal did. It just didn't come with sentences attached, so I ignored it for years. Which leaves one thing that doesn't add up. If the body is that accurate, that fast, that reliable, then why do so many of us miss the person doing the damage until we're already deep in it? Here's where the standard advice falls apart. You've heard it your whole life. Trust your first impression. Go with your gut on people. The research says your first impression is very often the exact place this goes wrong. Think about the last person who lit up a room the moment they walked into it. Funny. Magnetic. The kind of easy confidence that makes a whole table lean toward them within 10 minutes. You liked them immediately. Everybody did. That was sort of the point. Now here's the part that's hard to hear. That instant magnetism isn't a bonus feature sitting on top of an otherwise good person. In the data, it's frequently the tell. Psychologists have studied what they call zero-acquaintance judgments, snap impressions of total strangers, sometimes formed in the first couple of minutes of meeting. And when they run this on people who score high in narcissism, something uncomfortable shows up. Narcissists don't come across as off-putting at first. They come across as more likable, more attractive, more confident than everyone else in the room. It gets worse. The specific traits that do the most damage over the long haul, the entitlement, the willingness to use people, those are the traits that test as the most appealing at first sight, not despite being charming, because of it. The charm and the harm are wired into the same package. So the advice to trust your gut in the first meeting and the advice to give people time to reveal themselves are quietly at war with each other. Because in that first meeting, a certain kind of draining person isn't accidentally likable. They're at their most likable. The Polish is doing a job. It's getting you to lower the very instrument we just spent 2 minutes talking about. I've done this. I've grabbed a friend by the shoulder and said, "You have got to meet this person. You're going to love them." Full confidence about someone who, 8 months later, I would cross a parking lot to avoid. I wasn't a bad judge of character. I was charmed exactly on schedule, right when the charm was strongest. So when you look back on some draining relationship and ask yourself, how did I not see it? Go easier on yourself. You weren't blind. You were reading the first impression, and the first impression was designed to be read wrong. None of this, by the way, is new to human beings. We just needed 2,000 years in a psychology department to write it down a second time. Epictetus never used the word contagion. He used 2 pieces of coal. He was teaching students in a small school in Greece, roughly 1900 years ago, not writing polished books, talking out loud to people sitting in front of him about how to actually live. And one day, he tries to explain what happens to you when you spend real time around the wrong person. He doesn't reach for a theory. He reaches for something everyone in that room had seen. Take a live coal, he says, still glowing, still hot. Set it down next to a coal that's gone cold and dead. Now wait. Only 2 things can happen. Either the cold one pulls the heat out of the live one until both sit there gray and dead, or the live one throws off enough fire to bring the dead one back. There is no third option. They do not simply sit beside each other unchanged. Contact does something, every time. Then he says the line. If you spend your time with someone covered in dirt, he tells his students, it is very hard not to get a little dirty yourself. Read that again, because it's easy to hear it as a warning about willpower and completely miss the point. He is not saying be strong enough to stay clean. He's saying that's not how it works. He's not describing character. He's describing physics. Put a warm thing next to a cold thing and heat moves. It doesn't ask how disciplined you are first. It doesn't check whether you meditated this morning. The transfer happens because that's what proximity does. This comes from a collection called The Discourses, Book 1. And these weren't inspirational quotes. They were working lessons for people trying to build a decent life in a messy world, which is to say, people exactly like you. And notice what he is not telling you to do. He is not telling you to toughen up around the person who drains you. He's not telling you to try harder, to have better boundaries in your head, to simply decide they won't affect you. He looked at that whole strategy 2,000 years ago and quietly pointed at a coal. That's not how coal works, which means the coal isn't a dead relic in an old book. It's still burning. Same fire, 20 centuries later, just moved into a completely different building. You called it closeness. The data calls it something else. Picture the friend who calls every night. Same conflict, same wound, told again from the top. The coworker who cornered them, the ex who won't text back, the family thing that never resolves. And you listen because that's what you do, because talking it through is what close people do for each other. You hang up feeling like you were there for someone, like the closeness got a little deeper tonight. Here's the reframe, and it's not a comfortable one. Intimacy and drain can be the exact same relationship, wearing the exact same face. There's a researcher named Amanda Rose who gave this a name: co-rumination. It's what happens when two people go over the same problem again and again, turning it, poking it, sitting in the bad feeling together without ever moving toward the door. And she studied it across hundreds of kids and teenagers, tracking them over time. What she found breaks the thing we all assume. Co-rumination did two things at once. It made the friendships feel closer. The people doing it reported tighter, more connected relationships. And it made them more depressed and more anxious over time. The same behavior, pulling both directions at once. The closeness was real. The damage was also real. They weren't opposites canceling out. They were riding in on the same conversation. So sit with the shape of what we've built here. Emotional contagion measured in a lab in our lifetime. A Stoic with his two coals, 1900 years ago. And a study of kids talking on the phone. 3 completely different rooms, 3 completely different centuries, all arriving at one deeply inconvenient conclusion. Closeness and depletion are not enemies. Sometimes they are the same thing, and you've just been calling it by the nicer name. And this is where it stops being about strangers, stops being about the magnetic person at the party or the coworker you can avoid. Because the cold that's quietly pulling the heat out of you is very often not a stranger at all. It's someone you love, someone you defend, someone who calls it closeness too. I called it a good talk every time. I'd hang up, tell myself we were close, and then need 40 minutes flat on the couch before I could do anything with my evening. I did that for years and never once put those two facts in the same sentence. The good talk and the 40 minutes on the couch. I never did the math, so what do you actually do with a coal you can't put out? The fix was never about getting tougher. Epictetus already handed it to you. It's proximity. Go back to the coal for a second. If the heat moves through contact, if that's the whole mechanism, then contact is the one thing in the entire setup you actually control. Not your willpower. You can't out-discipline physics. We covered that. Not your empathy, not how good a listener you are, just one variable: how close you stand and how long you stay. The researcher behind that first study, the one with the irritated actor in the room, spent years on how mood moves between people. And when she talked about protecting yourself from it, her advice was almost funny in how ordinary it was. She described a manager who dreaded walking past one particular coworker's desk every morning, because every morning it dragged his whole mood down. The fix wasn't a hard conversation. It wasn't a boundary speech or a breakthrough. The man just started taking a different route through the office, walked a slightly longer way to his desk, and it worked. That's it. He changed his exposure, not his character. He didn't get stronger. He got farther away. And that lands almost exactly where Epictetus did. Faced with the coal that's pulling your heat, he saw 2 honest options. Bring enough fire to warm the other one back to life. Or, if you can't, and often you can't, stop sitting so close to it. Clean them up or step out of the room. 1900 years apart, the Stoic and the psychologist gave you the same short instruction. It just wore different clothes each time. So let me say the thing this whole video has been circling. Choosing less time with someone who drains you is not cruelty. It is not you being cold or dramatic or a bad friend. It's what any sane person does with a live flame and a cold coal. You don't leave them pressed together and call it loyalty. You give them space because you understand what happens when you don't. Here's the part I can't do for you. If you've had a specific face in your head since the first minute of this, and I think you have, then you don't actually need me to tell you what comes next. You needed the science to stop arguing with the thing you already felt. That's all this was. Permission to stop calling your own gut a liar. Because your body already knew. It knew in the tightness before the call, in the breath you let out when they left, in the 40 minutes you needed and never explained. It's been trying to tell you since the first minute you met them. You were just waiting for someone to say it counted.